Hi, hello, welcome back. My name is Devraj. This is Mysticism and the Body. And in today's video, I want to talk about subjectivity, the sense we have of being a person and what it looks like kind of according to the Christian mystics, the Christians, who in many ways for the last couple of thousand years have been forging our subjective experience through the culture they've created. And what it looks like according to the Liber the Book of the Law, a short 3-chapter book channeled in 1904 by English occultist Aleister Crowley whilst he was on his honeymoon in Egypt. And the reason why I think this topic is interesting and relevant to today's world because, according to the Liber and also according to numerous kind of mystical people throughout the last 100 years, we're undergoing an Aeon changeover. That every 2,100 years or so, there's a shift in Aeon to a different astrological house, and we're moving from Pisces to Aquarius. And what I think is going to happen is fundamentally a shift in how subjectivity happens, how we consider ourselves to be a person. And I don't think this is the kind of shift that takes place in like a day, it's taking place over a century or two. But what I see in the world personally is that there's a lot of change happening, and you can see, a sense of a lot of kind of situations coming to a head. Capitalism kind of moving to a new phase with like software as a service and also AI now. The sense that we've been revering human beings for their high intelligence, but now AI is coming up and may well soon exceed us. Geopolitical struggles, as America under Trump tries to reassert its primacy globally and this kind of thing. I have a feeling like a lot of things are coming to a head, and maybe it's to do with the Aeon changeover. And the Aeon changeover is actually the principal subject of the Liber the Book of the Law. So let's start with the Christian mystics, or Christianity, the Christian society, which really has been dominant for this whole Piscean era, the time around the birth of Jesus to the present day. And basically what happens when we're born, where we come out of our mama and we don't have a concept of self. We have these senses coming into us and our mind kind of making sense of it, but it's all just a big mass of sensory experiences and feelings. We don't have that. There's no duality in it. It's just is what it is, and we're in this kind of wow state. And then at a certain point, maybe after about a year or so of being like this, the culture starts to come in. That culture starts to come in and it teaches you how to form a sense of self. It teaches you what is you, essentially, and what is not you. And that cultural influence has been really fashioned by Christianity for the majority of the Piscean era. And essentially what it says is that you are this body. You're not the world around you, you're this body, you're living inside the world around you. And who you are essentially is an individual sort of experiencer or observer. You're living inside a head and you're looking out at the world. It's outside of you. And there are all sorts of other individual experiences living inside heads around you. And we're all in a society living in a world. And then the Christian ethos also gives us, kind of rules and ethics to live by so that we don't hurt each other, so we don't do bad things to each other, so we don't destroy the society, the civilization that we've forged in this manner. So we go from the point of birth of being in this kind of bliss state into this state where we're identified a certain way. And then as we grow up, we find in the world there are all these kind of pyramidal hierarchical structures which maintain the society. They maintain this state of civilization. And of course they maintain the cultural structure which is training the newborn children to model selfhood in this manner. I'm an inner experiencer, I'm an individual, I'm living inside this head, and I'm looking at a world out there. So although I'm talking about the West and Christianity, really, if you look in outside the West, at the sort of rest of the world, you'll see similar processes going on. It's a little bit different in different places. I think the Western Christian psyche is a bit more instrumentalized. We're a bit more agentic. And this certainly for the last 500 to 1,000 years has given us a lot of power and the capacity to be a hegemonic force in global culture. You've got the kind of moral religious aspect of it, how to behave, who you are, and how to behave with the people around you. And then you've also got a kind of mystical redemptive aspect to it, which says, yes, you are this body, you are this person, you are living inside this mind. But, if you open your heart center here, you will experience love. You'll experience love for the other individuals around you. You may experience love for the world. So you've got the kind of mainstream religion, keeping you in a kind of hierarchical structure to maintain the civilization. And then you've got the kind of esoteric, mystical undercurrent, the redemptive aspect, the Christ aspect, which says if you open your heart, you experience love. And this is redemptive or salvific because it kind of takes away the pain of duality. Takes away the pain of being in a sort of hierarchical assembly and likely not very close to the top. If you experience more love from the heart center, then it's easier to be in this world. So this is the perspective, according to the Christians and the Christian mystics, that's been dominant for the last couple of thousand years or so. Yes, if you're feeling pedantic, Christianity wasn't really formulated as a religion until about the 4th century, but I guess you know what I mean. Now let's shift over to the Book of the Law, Liber, and have a look what it's saying. Because really this document is essentially it's a kind of manifesto or more like that's a bit political, but it's more like, a religious text for the Aeon changeover. And chapter 1, the first 14 verses, which you can find online anywhere for free or read, essentially it's the voice of Nuit, who is like the Egyptian sky goddess or Egyptian star goddess. And if you read these first 14 verses and really sort of take them in and meditate on them, what they're trying to do is go into your mind and change things around. They're trying to rip out the Christian program, basically. And what Nuit is saying, the hubs is in the who, not the who in the hubs. And what this means is that you are not a person living in a world. The world is inside you. When the parents and the culture came in and said, no, this is you and this is your name, she's saying, no, you are actually the whole world. And, this might sound pretty radical. It is pretty radical when you've been conditioned a certain way. And yet there is nothing in our kind of existential reality to say that I am a kind of limited being living inside my head. She's saying every man and every woman is a star, meaning every man and every woman is living inside their own universe, and that this is the existential truth. Worship then the hubs, and behold my light shed over you. So here she's saying, your identity, if you need one, is the whole of existence, but from that perspective, worship your individuality. And she's pretty judgmental about the people who've got the standard way of modelling selfhood. Verse 11, these are fools that men adore. Both their gods and their men are fools. She's saying, to believe you're this kind of little me character, a limited individual living inside a head, that's foolish. Imagining there's a god kind of up there looking over you, telling you what to do or whatever. She's saying that's foolish. Not only the people doing this are foolish, but their gods are foolish too. And she's kind of saying, come forth, O children, under the stars, and take your fill of love. So, if you read these 14 verses slowly and take them in, it changes tone a little bit with verse 15. But if you read the first 14 verses slowly, that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to go right into your mind to when you're about 6 months old and spin you around, rip out the old program and put a new program in there. And she's promising that if you do this, you will experience ecstasy. Okay, so let's go back to the Christian mystics a little bit and the idea of this Piscean era. Because what are we really saying here? Is Nuit saying that the Christians are wrong? Is she saying that the existing culture of the last 2,000 years is wrong? I don't think so, really. It's more like she's saying there's going to be a change, and I am the agent of that change. And if you've read the Book of the Law, sometimes it's kind of a bit seductive and trying to lead you into dropping the old sense of individuality. And other times it's coming in with a bit more the hammer and saying, no, it's going to go now. So what does this change of the Aeon really say about the Piscean era, and what's going on if we try to step back and look at culture over these kind of multiple 2,000-year phases? Well, I think a super interesting way of seeing this is in this classic kind of bit of Christian iconography, which is, this is not the only example of it. There are many examples of it. This character here is obviously Jesus Christ, and he is inside this vessel, or this geometric shape, which is made by two circles interlocking, and that shape is called a vesica Pisces. And this is like a kind of membrane. It's a protective membrane, to keep something safe for a period of time. So Christ is really an ideal for the Piscean subjectivity, this sense of self that we've had for the Piscean era. Christ is the ideal for that. Try to be like Christ. Try to be like Jesus if you're born in the West. If you're born in different countries, outside the West, there's different ideals, but in many ways it's very, very similar. So in a sense, this form of subjectivity that's been existing for the last 2,000 years, this Piscean era, can be understood as a means to carry something through an era in a state of protection, keeping it protected in this vesica. So what would that be if subjectivity is just a kind of protective program that lasts for a phase of time and then we move to the next phase? Well, what I say it is, it's a way to keep the human body and the energy inside the human body safe. The Christian culture coming into the Piscean era trained the children to model selfhood in a certain way, placed them in hierarchical structures, and being primates, we love our hierarchical structures. So it's a way basically of keeping the human body, keeping the human body safe and keeping it reproducing, keeping the energy inside the body safe. It's like a protective program which has been loaded into your frontal lobes for 2,000 years. And now what's happening, if you believe Liber, and indeed if we look at this icon of Christ, the only thing that comes outside the vesica is his right hand with two fingers raised. Now it's like an esoteric gesture saying listening to intuition, the still small voice that you hear in the deep of the night. That's the only thing that can penetrate through the vesica. This vesica is keeping you safe from outside influences. But it's also, you notice his hand is also pointing into this character here. And this is Aquarius here. This is Aquarius, Scorpio the eagle, Taurus down here, and Leo here. 4 astrological signs spaced, if you imagine this astrological wheel, 12 kind of houses, they're spaced evenly. And he's kind of pointing towards Aquarius. So maybe to say that an intuition from the is coming from the Aquarian era, coming into the vesica Pisces. This is the only thing he's going to allow to come through. He's going to keep you safe from the outside for this phase. So that's just some reflection on the symbology here. And then, we come to like 1904 when this work was channeled, and and it's talking all the way through about the new Aeon coming, and here comes Nuit, and she's like, forget all that stuff. You are not a person living in a world. The world is inside you. Every man and woman is a universe unto themselves. And now if we look at the world that's emerging now, we see, in the post-COVID era, in the rise of technology, people are increasingly in their own world. We're increasingly in our own world. The social fabric, that had bound us together for the Piscean era is starting to be rent apart by the forces that are coming really for a new phase of capitalism. So, it would be great if I could tell you how the Aquarian era is really going to be, but I don't really know. I'm just kind of deliberating and trying to work things out myself as I go along. But it looks to me like what's going to shift is pretty big, and it's going to be a real shift in how we consider ourselves to be a person. Okay, cool. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you've got something useful from this presentation and me putting out a few of my ideas. And I'll see you again soon for some more mysticism in the body.